want to make sure we talk about mnemonic devices because that is something I encourage students to use when they're trying to remember things. So when I say mnemonic device, I'm talking about PEMDAS. So Cynthia, I know you're not necessarily a math person, but that is something, yeah, it's something pretty much everyone listening is familiar with. They learned it in school, usually math class, kind of late elementary, middle school. And so that idea of remembering what each letter stands for and how to do your order of operations, that is a mnemonic device. So an example I like to talk about is when I was in middle school, learning the bones and having to know their names and locations, I created a mnemonic device, a sentence, where each letter of the first letter of each word in that sentence represented a bone. And so that's how I practiced that particular concept. But anyway, you asked me, Cynthia, about annotating. So annotating is some people think it's boring. I think it's fun. I think it's important because you're not just reading a textbook. You're not just reading a handout. You're actually notes and you're writing. That concept of really interacting with the text physically, that's what helps students learn so much from annotating. Now we have some older students here, I know, some college students, and I'm hoping, and I know their parents probably hope too, that they're actually reading their textbooks, their chapters they're assigned before the class. And annotating comes in that if they've actually done that reading ahead of time, when the teacher brings up a certain passage, if the student has taken a time to put a sticky note in there with a question or maybe some kind of summarization, then they can actually interact with the teacher in class because they know exactly what they understood, what they want to talk about when in that discussion.
See, combined test scores and GPA and transcripts. I think test prep is huge, a big factor. The higher the best grades you can get, the better scores you get. Combine those, that is money. So that's what I would suggest. Study, prep. You don't go to the Olympics, as a swimmer without getting in the pool.
I mean, to me, it's always about having accountability and a mentor. To me, that is honestly, in my experience in life and for my kids. I mean, I'll give you an example, a simple example, but my wife and I have never been morning people. And not too long ago, my wife started going to the gym in the morning, and she gets up like 5 o'clock in the morning. So then I'm obviously awake by then too. And it's because there becomes that accountability. Like she goes to the gym with lots of people. And so, it's the accountability that is what kind of gets her out of bed every morning.
If you just practice mindful walking, whether it's in the morning or if you're just outside of your lunch break, it will just immediately calm you down and just give you a sense of peace. And you'll just realize that, oh, I didn't know that I could hear the birds chirping because you're probably so used to scrolling social media mindlessly. And that's what we want to do mindfully. We want to become more aware of our surroundings.
Instead of the greasy, cheeseburger or, the wings and before a big test, because that's just going to make you sleepy. You know what I mean? That's not going to, get your brain functioning right. You want to make sure you're fueling your body with, things that are going to refuel you and to have your brain operating as best that it can be. So, any kind of protein, is good. You want to make sure you're eating, that lean meat, chicken, fish, making sure you're getting some veggies in there somehow, right? Fruits are always good, your grains. If you are having bread, and bread is good, okay? Bread is good. People say, carbs are bad. No, you need carbs, okay? You need carbs. So make sure carbs are a part of your day, but they're making sure that they're the good carbs. So whole wheat stuff, if you're having a sandwich, whole wheat, make sure you're doing that. But yeah, just making sure that you're substituting foods that you would regularly have with something a little bit more healthier.
Because when we think of success in general, it's 80% mental. So success is 80% mental, 20% strategy. But unfortunately, always, and we do this as adults, when we have a problem, the first thing we think is strategy. We never go to the mental aspect first to address that before we talk about strategy. So the teenagers, first thing we do is address the mental aspect. And oftentimes I find if there's some mental block, we're not calling it mental block, it's ultimately a belief system. They have some sort of belief system that will hinder their success. That belief system can be as simple as school is boring. It's not a fact. It's a subjective statement, but in their mind, they have adopted that subjective statement to be certain and a fact in their minds, and not as a belief. Oh, school is boring.
And I learned through one of my teachers to use the SQ3R study method. I don't know if anybody even uses that anymore. SQ3R, have you heard of it?
I think so, but I'm not very
It's
familiar
really
with
cool.
it.
It's so simple. First thing you do, say you've got to study a textbook. You do the S, which is survey. So I pick up the book, might be a history text, American history, whatever, and I'll survey it. I'll read the front cover, the back, inside the table of contents, just surveying it, just glancing at all the stuff that's in here, the chapter headings, maybe the first paragraph of each chapter. And that just gives me an overview. Then it's SQ, Q is question. So I'll start asking questions. What am I going to learn from this book? What should I be thinking of? What parts of this will be interesting to me? So my brain is already switching on looking for interesting things because that's what it's sorting for. And then the 3R is, first one is read, and then it's recite, and then review. So I survey it, I look over it all, ask questions about it, then I read it. After I read it, I'm going to recite back what I do remember from it. And review means I go back to the beginning and do the whole thing again. I just keep doing that. And as I do that over time, amazingly, the information gets in.
And how do you plan? Because basically you need to understand when is your free time to be able to block time for them to study. But if you don't know when you have the time to study, and you are not blocking time in your calendar to do it, if you don't plan, you don't do. That's my best quote. So in order for you to be able to plan and to have the time, you need to be aware when is your free time and what can you do with it.
But what's amazing is when I'm working with students who say, oh my God, I hate math. I was never good in math. Part of it is you didn't have the teacher that spoke your math language. And once you find that, all of a sudden you realize I'm not so bad with numbers. I'm actually pretty darn good. But you just need that first person to say, I get it. Let me explain it this way. You try it. Let's keep going and not burn through it.